Why do good people given power become monsters? It is the oldest, most tragic story in human history. A visionary leader, elected by the people, becomes a tyrant who silences dissent. A revolutionary CEO who dreams of changing the world becomes a ruthless billionaire who exploits his workers. We call them bad apples. We blame their character. We say they were corrupted. But what if corruption isn't a choice? What if power is not a position, but a poison? A neurotoxin that fundamentally changes the human brain? What if the very people we choose to lead us are neurologically incapable of caring about us? This is not a story about politics or business. It is a story about psychology, the dark psychology of power. Part 1, the paradox. We have been told a lie about power. We believe power is taken, seized by force through aggression and dominance. The 16th century philosopher Niccolo Machiavelli wrote the playbook on this. It is better to be feared than loved. But modern psychology tells us the opposite is true. Power is not taken, it is given. Dr. Dacher Keltner, a psychologist at UC Berkeley, calls this the power paradox. His research, spanning decades, reveals a simple truth. We grant power to those who are most focused on others. We give power to the most empathetic, the most generous, the most socially intelligent person in the group. The one who advocates for the weak, the one who listens, the one who advances the greater good. We give them power because they are good. And that is the beginning of the tragedy. Because the paradox is this. The very skills that allowed them to gain power are the first things they lose once they have it. The research is clear. The experience of having power is a form of psychological and neurological transformation. It is like an engine that, once started, begins to shut down the very parts of the brain that made us human. It acts like a form of brain damage, turning the empathetic into the egocentric. It makes people more impulsive, more reckless, and less aware of risks. But most terrifying of all, it erodes empathy. The empathetic leader we chose ceases to exist. Part 2, the ascent, tools of the Dark Triad. But let's be honest, is social good really the only way to the top? The power paradox explains the good leader, but it doesn't explain the ruthless one. It doesn't explain the corporate raider, the manipulative boss, the cutthroat politician. For this, we must look at a different, darker set of psychological tools. They are known as the Dark Triad: Narcissism, Machiavellianism, and Psychopathy. These are not clinical disorders, but a set of personality traits. And in the modern world, they are a superpower. Narcissism, a grandiose sense of self-importance, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. In a leader, this is often disguised as vision and unshakable confidence. Machiavellianism, a willingness to manipulate, deceive, and exploit others to achieve one's goals. A focus on self-interest and a cynical view of morality. This is disguised as strategic thinking and political skill. Psychopathy, characterized by impulsivity, a lack of remorse, and a callous disregard for others. In a corporate setting, this is disguised as boldness, decisiveness, and the ability to make tough calls. You might think these traits would get you fired, but research shows the opposite. People with Dark Triad traits are more likely to be promoted. They are more likely to be seen as leaders. Why? Because they are willing to do what others are not. Robert Greene, in his book The 48 Laws of Power, codified the Machiavellian playbook.
Law 3, conceal your intentions.
Law 7, get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. Law 14, pose as a friend, work as a spy. Law 15, crush your enemy totally. These are not the rules of a good person. They are the rules of power. The modern corporate structure and the political arena have become filtering mechanisms. They are ecosystems designed to reward these precise traits. So we have two paths to power. One person gets there through empathy, and power destroys it. The other person gets there by lacking empathy, and power rewards it.
The outcome
is the same. A leader disconnected from the people they lead. Part 3, the sickness Hubris Syndrome. When this disconnection becomes total, it is no longer just a personality flaw. It becomes a sickness. The ancient Greeks had a word for it: hubris. Dangerous, overwhelming pride. The arrogance that challenges the gods. Lord David Owen, a British politician and physician, studied this phenomenon. He watched leaders, prime ministers, and presidents change before his very eyes. He argued it was a recognizable, acquired disorder. He called it Hubris Syndrome. It is not narcissistic personality disorder, which is lifelong. Hubris Syndrome is acquired. It is a disorder of position. It only appears after a person has held overwhelming power for a period of time. Lord Owen and psychiatrist Jonathan Davidson identified 14 clinical symptoms. As you hear them, ask yourself who they remind you of. A grandiose self-image, an obsession with presentation and image, a messianic zeal and exaltation in their speech, a belief that they are answerable not to the public, but to a higher court, like history or God, excessive self-confidence, and a profound contempt for the advice or criticism of others, a loss of contact with reality, an inability to see the nuts and bolts of policy, replaced by a focus on a grand vision, and finally, hubristic incompetence, when a leader's overconfidence and refusal to listen leads directly to disastrous failure. This is the end stage of power poisoning. The leader is no longer leading. They are performing on a stage for an audience of one, themselves. They are surrounded by yes men, having systematically eliminated anyone who would dare to say no. They are isolated, they are untouchable, and they are profoundly dangerous. Part 4, The Brain's Betrayal, How Power Kills Empathy. This is not poetry. It is not a metaphor. This is biology. Neuroscientists like Sukhvinder Obi wanted to know why this happens. What does power do to the brain? They conducted an experiment. They gave one group of subjects a feeling of power by having them recall a time they were in charge. They gave another group a feeling of powerlessness. Then they used a transcranial magnetic stimulation machine to measure the mirror neuron system. The mirror system is the neurological basis of empathy. When you see someone in pain, your brain's pain centers light up. When you see someone smile, your brain smiles too. It is how we connect. It is the root of empathy. The results were chilling. For the powerless group, the mirror system was strong. They were fully empathetic. But for the powerful group, the mirror neuron system was dead. It had shut down. Their brains, I simply stopped connecting. Power, even the memory of power, had neurologically disconnected them from other human beings. The person in charge does not feel your pain. They are, by the very function of their brain, incapable of it. This is the brain's betrayal. This is why the powerful so often seem callous, cold, and out of touch. They don't see you as a person. They see you as an object, a tool to be used, or an obstacle to be removed. Part 5, Case Studies in Corruption. The world is not run by theories. It is run by people. People who are subject to these very forces. Case Study 1, the Machiavellian, Steve Jobs. A visionary, a genius, the man who put the universe in our pocket. He was also a master of manipulation. Jobs was known for his reality distortion field, a terrifying mix of charm, charisma, and outright lies that could convince anyone of anything, even the impossible. He would weep in meetings to get his way. He would praise an idea as brilliant one day and ridicule it as idiotic the next. He famously took credit for the work of others, like the original Pong game created by Steve Wozniak. He was not a psychopath. He was a high-functioning Machiavellian. He used fear, competition, and psychological manipulation to build the most valuable company in the world. He was a perfect and terrifying example of the Dark Triad's success. Case Study 2, The Narcissist, Elon Musk, a man who sees himself as bigger than his companies. A man who believes truly that only he can solve humanity's greatest problems: energy, transport, space, even free speech. This is classic grandiose narcissism, a fantasy of unlimited success and power, a belief in his own perfection, and a contempt for anyone who questions it. He fires employees who correct him, He mocks the board of directors. He behaves as if he is above all rules, because in his mind he is. He is the visionary, and we are just along for the ride. The perfect embodiment of the narcissistic leader who believes he is the sole savior. Case study 3, the hubris, Blair and Bush. But the most dangerous stage is hubris. And for this, we look to George W. Bush and Tony Blair and the war in Iraq. Lord Owen identifies these two leaders as classic examples of hubris syndrome. After the success of the Kosovo intervention, Blair began to show a messianic zeal. He saw the world as a stage for his own moral vision. Both men developed an excessive confidence in their own judgment and a total contempt for criticism. When the UN weapons inspectors said there were no weapons, they were ignored. When millions of people marched in the streets, they were dismissed. The leaders had lost contact with reality. They were driven by a broad vision of moral rectitude that obviated the need to consider practicality, cost, or outcomes. They were accountable only to history. The result was hubristic incompetence on a global scale, a catastrophic failure born from the intoxication of power. Part 6, the antidote.
So,
Are we doomed? Are we destined to be ruled by the callous? Or watch the good become corrupted? Is there an antidote to the poison of power? Dacher Keltner, the man who defined the paradox, believes there is. The antidote is to remember the truth. Power is given, and it can be taken away. The antidote is humility, to remember that to influence others is a privilege, not a right. The antidote is awareness, to recognize the first symptom of power, the first time you stop listening, the first time you feel contempt, and to stop it. The antidote is focusing on others. Keltner's solution is simple. Stay focused on other people. Prioritize others' interests as much as your own. Take delight in the delights of others.
power is not a possession.
It is a relationship, a fragile social contract. And the moment a leader forgets who gave them that power, the contract is broken. The first step to escaping the prison is to realize you are in it. Today, you have seen the bars. You have seen the psychological mechanisms that build the cage. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge? Comment below. This is Capital Vices.